Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back with another quick list video I've prepared for all of you that I'm calling 5 comics I'd love to read for the first time again. I believe I did a prompt similar to this not too long ago, but I was looking at my shelf and I was just really wanting to focus on these couple collections. These books really just captured something for me that while I still enjoy them upon reread, if I had a chance to read them for the first time, completely blank slate, I know I would absolutely love the opportunity to do so. Now before we jump into today's selections, as always I would like to shout out our channel sponsor, Panel Bound Comics. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, perhaps some of the books on this very video, as always I encourage you to check out their website. You can find a link to them in the video description, and if you see anything site-wide that you like, you can actually use my discount code at checkout, TheComicBookReport, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's one of the best ways to support this channel. Thank you very much for considering. Now let's get started with today's comic book list. First on the list today, in no particular order, we have Batman by Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale Omnibus from DC Comics. I think while the Scott Snyder, Greg Capullo era on Batman is my favorite continuous Batman run, there is something to be said about these works from Loeb and Sale. In fact, I think that this is easily one of my most revisited Bat books, and it's one I think about very fondly. If you're unfamiliar with what Jeph Loeb and Tim Sale did with Batman, they created works like Haunted Night, Batman the Long Halloween, and its direct sequel, Dark Victory, as well as Catwoman When in Rome, which is set within that same world, timeline, universe, whatever you want to say. And all of those works are packed in here in oversized format in this single omnibus volume. It's a great way to read these stories. Like I said, it's showcased so wonderfully. Tim Sale's iconic artwork has never looked sharper in my mind, and it's just such a treat to have it all together like this. Of this collection, my favorite work in here is The Long Halloween, which is this just sprawling murder mystery in Gotham. We get to see so many of Batman's rogues gallery of villains, and this is set earlier in the crime fighter's career. It is one of my favorite singular Batman stories of all time, and I think its sequel, Dark Victory, is just about as good, which is honestly a triumph. And while the other works in this omnibus are great, it's really those two collections, The Long Halloween and Dark Victory, that really catch my eye for today's list. Now, I have read these works a few times, and every time I read it, I still enjoy it, and sometimes just pull something new from it every time to enjoy. But really, why I would love to re-roll this and read it again for the first time, being a murder mystery, not knowing who done it, so to speak, that has its own novelty. And while I'm not saying I'm reading this with diminishing returns, I think that these are just classic, quintessential Batman stories. But if I had the actual plot knowledge removed, and I just got to go in completely blank, I just would love that. Easily making my list here. As a huge Batman fan, he's my second favorite superhero of all time. I think that that would just be such a novel experience, and I think that this is the Batman story that I would do that with. It's just absolutely incredible. Long Halloween and actually Dark Victory, both just phenomenal reads. Even looking at some of Tim Sale's great artwork right here, it makes me wonder if I'm due to go back into the world of The Long Halloween yet again. And while we flip through just a little bit more, I just would love to hear in the comments, are you a fan of Batman The Long Halloween and Dark Victory? Are you a fan of Jeph Loeb or Tim Sale just in general? I know they did a ton of other great work together, like the Marvel Colors series, like Spider-Man Blue, Daredevil Yellow, things like that. I would love to hear in the comments, like I said, if you're a fan of these or whatnot. Okay, on with the show. Okay, next on my list is admittedly kind of a polarizing read. This is Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4 by Grant Morrison and Jay Lee from Marvel Comics. I should note as well that this is during the Marvel Knights era at Marvel Comics. As far as where this story is in the overall canon and continuity of Fantastic Four, I really can't speculate. I don't know for sure, but this is one of my favorite standalone Fantastic Four stories, full stop. Admittedly, I am an absolute sucker for the artwork of Jay Lee. I know I've showcased works he's been a part of for some time. I love his covers, I love his interior artwork. I just think he's a phenomenal creator, and how he adapted these beloved characters I just thought was wonderful. I'm also a huge fan of Morrison. What Morrison did for Batman and Doom Patrol and a lot of these DC events, I just consider Morrison one of the greatest comic creators, writers of all time. And I think there are shades of that in this story here. I know every time I talk about this, I feel like it gets polarizing comments. I appreciate that this is not everyone's favorite Fantastic Four story. Again, totally respect that. Is this the best incarnation of these characters? That is extremely debatable. However, I still think as a standalone work, this is a fantastic read. And while this isn't a whodunit murder mystery like in the pages of The Long Halloween, that Batman story I just spoke on, why I think that this would be so much fun to read again is that this does have a bit of twists and turns. I don't really want to spoil too much, but essentially we are picking up in the lives of the Fantastic Four. They're in kind of a bleak, sort of depressive season or episode. The team is being stretched and just feeling kind of generally downtrodden. They don't really know where Reed is or what he's up to, and there's this kind of growing storm, this weather pattern that seems to be happening throughout the novel, and as you go, it just mounts, tensions get higher, things get more escalated, and I just love the sense of palpable tension and stakes, and even the kind of surreality that the creators play with the tones in this, I just think are really, really engaging. And again, for the sake of this video, I don't want to spoil everything for you, but the way this story resolves, I just thought was fascinating. I thought it was definitely pitch perfect for a fun, sci-fi, Fantastic Four story, and I would just love to experience that for the first time. Honestly, as well, this was one of my first modern Fantastic Four stories I had the privilege of reading, and even looking through it now, I just am so captivated by the art of Jay Lee. It just does not get old for me. The way he depicts these characters, I just still am engaged by it. I would read this story again in a heartbeat. And I think that this is one that, while I get a lot of polarizing comments, I know there's people that watch this that maybe have never read this story, and if you want just a quick, in-and-out, standalone Fantastic Four read that I can recommend, definitely don't miss out on Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4. And hey, while I have your attention, if you're enjoying this video and you've yet to subscribe to the channel, I would just like to invite you to do so. I'm always doing comic book based list videos like this, reviews, unboxings, overviews, and more. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's keep this right on going. Alrighty, and next up on our list today for great books I'd love to reread for the first time, this is Locke and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez. And of course, to showcase this incredible IDW comic series, I have the Keyhouse Compendium, which is an oversized hardcover edition that is the same size dimensions as an omnibus. Really love this edition in particular. It's a great way to read the entire main run of the series in one singular volume. Now, in case you're going in blank slate, what is Locke and Key? Well, at its most basic, I would consider it a dark fantasy, horror, family drama kind of series. I know that that's a lot in there, but it's about the Locke family, who after experiencing a family tragedy, moves to the ancestral home in New England, and on this property there are a host of magical keys. And as the children find them, they realize that each of these keys has a special power or ability. Now, where the magic in these keys came from and what is the looming darkness tied to this region and the history of this family and these characters, all of that is detailed inside this series. I thought that this was a fantastic exploration of generational trauma, tragedy, and triumph, and honestly, it's a series I think about quite often. The characterization is so top-notch, it's absolutely a character-driven series, and the art from Gabriel Rodriguez I just thought was pitch perfect. It's at times really real and grounded, and at other times really fantastical, surrealistic, and just straight up magical. I think that all of this serves the central storytelling mechanics, and I cannot tell you how much I enjoyed the series overall. It has such a satisfying beginning, middle, and end, and to this day I still think about key conflicts, climaxes, and character moments throughout. Why I would love to read this series again for the first time is pretty simple. I love this series. I would consider it one of my favorite comic book series of all time, and I would just love to experience it again again. While there is some great twists and turns kind of moments, I think just overall, if I went into it blind and I got to just take the journey with these characters again, I would just love it. I think it would be such an enriching experience. I know for me, while I do love the way this ends and I love the twists and turns and the character revelations, it's really the ongoing flow of the narrative. You do feel like there's also this kind of slice of life quality to it. Like you get to grow up a hair with all of these characters. You get to see them mature and grow as they deal with some really, really harrowing circumstances. And I would love to just go on that venture again. The art, like I said, for Gabriel Rodriguez, I think is perfect for the storytelling. I considered it really immersive to the point where the house and these keys, they felt like their own individual characters. And I think that, again, serviced the overall vision of the work, and it's just something that I found to be really novel and engaging. For these handful of reasons and so many more, if I had a chance to reread a series again for the first time, Locke and Key by Joe Hill and Gabriel Rodriguez would easily make the list. Okay, for the back half of our list today, I picked largely event-based books, and I have a couple reasons for that. Right now, we're going to go ahead and talk about Infinite Crisis from DC Comics. To do that, I do have their beautiful, oversized hardcover omnibus edition, which includes all of the miniseries leading into Infinite Crisis and the Infinite Crisis event itself. Now, does this have everything going on in the DC universe around this time? No. But does it have everything I needed to enjoy Infinite Crisis in what I believe to be its fullest context in one volume? Absolutely. So before picking up this omnibus, I had read Infinite Crisis in a trade paperback collection, which I thoroughly enjoyed. I had it in my collection for a number of years, and as I've gone across a lot of the DC Comics main events, I will say that Infinite Crisis has always stood a head above. It has always been my favorite, and I was curious to see what the omnibus added to the table. And I have to say, this book is a singular triumph. In fact, it may be one of my favorite DC omnibuses, along with the Snyder Capullo Batman and the Green Lantern by Jeph Johns. It's just that good. And not only do I personally consider Infinite Crisis the best DC comic event I have read to date, but this presentation and what it includes here I think is the definitive way to read it. Can you enjoy the couple of issues of the main event on its own? Yeah, like I said, I did that for a number of years. I didn't know any better. I only had really read Crisis on Infinite Earths before this as far as an event, but reading it in context of all of these mini-series that kind of set the stage and count down to Infinite Crisis, it made the main event so much more impactful, fulfilling. I was more aware of a lot of these characters, their motivations, what was going on behind the scenes, or in different pockets of the DC universe. And that really is another point I want to speak to. I talk about this a lot when I talk about this omnibus, but one of the things this event book did for me was it not only gave me a good appreciation of a lot of DC Comics main heroes and villains and just overall having a great event, but it made you feel so embedded in a broader comic book universe. This omnibus successfully navigates so many different pockets within the DC Comics universe, whether it's deep space, whether it's right here on Earth in a couple notable locations. You have people that are kind of your mainstream heroes, you have kind of the magic users, you have the kind of cosmic heroes, you have like all of these little pockets, and I loved it. The panoramic feeling of the DC universe reading Infinite Crisis omnibus is really hard to articulate beyond that unless you read it yourself. And really, that is a quality that I think if I could read it again for the first time, I would really want to replicate that sensation of just feeling like as I'm deep within this omnibus, I'm looking around and just seeing this beautiful, large, sprawling landscape of an entire DC universe. And the fact that it all culminates and bottlenecks and funnels into the main event, which just crescendos so marvelously, it is just an unparalleled reading experience. And if you're a fan of DC Comics or a prospective or newer fan of DC Comics and you have not read this event and this omnibus in particular, I highly recommend it. And to round out our list today, of course, we have House of X, Powers of 10 by Jonathan Hickman, Pepe Larraz, and more from Marvel Comics. Now, essentially, this is a great maxi-series X-Men book that I think about as a comic book event. This is the work that kicked off the broader Krakoa era for the X-Men and the other adjacent X titles. This is a pretty contemporary pick on this list here. In fact, I believe it's the most modern comic on this list. But I absolutely adored this work. In fact, I consider it one of my favorite X-Men stories of all time. And while this work does reward a lot of long-term X-Men fans, I think that this is also fairly friendly to new readers. And like I said, if you want to enjoy the Krakoa era in any real degree, I would consider this essential reading. What House of X Powers of 10 is on the surface is, like I said, maybe a 12 or 13 issue maxi series, or it's two different series, House of X and Powers of 10, but they're braided together into this one sprawling epic that reads seamlessly. Essentially, it tells the story about the mutants at this really important juncture in time, where they eventually culminate with building their own nation state on the mutant nation island of Krakoa. We have so many kind of geopolitical elements. We have so much about kind of the resurrection and unification of the mutants as a race. We have a lot of just shifting going on in the Marvel Universe. We really focus on characters like Professor X, Wolverine, Magneto, Moira McTaggart, and so many more. This, again, is the foundation on which the entire modern Krakoa era is based, and I think even just as a standalone event, this is a triumph. I should note, in true Hickman fashion, this is heavy into the science fiction aspect of things. We have several timelines and heady concepts, of course, rich dialogue, a huge cast of characters, and like I said, it's just a sprawling epic. If I were to reread this again for the first time, it would be to experience X-Men at its pinnacle, at least for me. I know there's arguments for the Claremont era as well, which I can personally vouch for what I've read of that, but this is the most excited I've been for an X-Men title in years and years and years. And not only that, it's kickstarted one of my favorite eras for Marvel's Merry Mutants. If you've been curious about X-Men, or maybe you've seen that Dawn of X Omnibus solicited coming up in a couple months, I would recommend this as a great bridge and starting point into the broader world of the X-Men, X titles, and certainly that Krakoa era. Now, this is the trade paperback, but I do think they're reprinting the oversized hardcover of this maxi series by the end of year, so it's a great time to get it pre-ordered if you haven't already. The art throughout this collection as well is absolutely stunning. I love the kind of polishing done here. I think the coloring is also definitely on point. Again, this is just such a fantastic book. I cannot speak highly enough about it. I just think it is the pinnacle of modern X-Men storytelling. Full stop. Okay, and that's going to do it today for 5 comics I'd love to read for the first time again. Like I said, I know I did a concept like this earlier on the channel. I might even had a few double dips here and there, but honestly, I was just looking at my bookcase, and these were books I really wanted to talk about more extensively, especially from this context. I know as people find these videos, there's something on this list for someone that I'm sure someone hasn't read. Did I say someone enough? Something enough? I don't know. You know what I mean. I think that every comic is someone's first comic for the most part, and I think that these are just a handful of my favorites. I would love an opportunity to read them for the first time again, and if you haven't read them yet, maybe this is an opportunity to. In the comments section, I would love to hear, do you enjoy any of my selections I showcased today in this video, and what is on your short list of a comic or comic run or book collection that you would love to read again for the first time if you somehow had the ability to do so. I would love to hear your lists. Perhaps it's a great way for me to get comic recommendations of books I somehow haven't read either. As always, thank you all for taking this journey with me and for watching along. I always love hearing from you guys in the comments, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, those comments we talked about, and maybe share this video with a friend. Thanks everyone, bye.